Arrow Season 2, Episode 18, Deathstroke. Now, I just finished watching this episode, and I gotta say, I definitely love the ending because through this episode, one of the big questions was, of course, what did Slade tell Thea about Oliver? The biggest thing you would think is he said Oliver's the Arrow. That's what you would expect. And then we find out that he told Thea that Malcolm Merlin is actually her father. And I love that scene. That was actually a really good scene where she feels that immense betrayal from her brother, who in the very last episode she said, "You're the only person who hasn't lied to me." And then she is just crushed by that. And when he says, "We were trying to protect you," I love the line where she says, "Do you know who you sound like? You sound like her," meaning their mother. I thought that was a really powerful scene, and we're gonna have to see how things go because in this episode, at this point in time, in the series really, Thea's kind of on her own now. Roy had to break up with her, and Roy also quit the team, so he may end up back with Thea and explaining to her, "Hey, this happened because of this or because of that." And who knows, he might actually tell her the truth, and he might not. Odds are he won't, just because she's already dealing with so much if she found out he was the Arrow as well. Who knows how catastrophic that could be on her mentally, but Roy quit in this episode. In the end of the episode, Slade, and I love this scene, Slade goes to Laurel's house and tells her, "I know Oliver's secret. He's the Arrow." Well, he didn't say I know Oliver's secret, but he said, "I'm here to destroy Oliver Queen, and I want to tell you, basically, he's the Arrow." And he just leaves. Like, she's freaking out and stuff, and he's just like, "I gotta go. I'm out of here." And he just walks away. That was his entire final plan, where he does all this stuff. In this one episode, there's a ton of things that happen. And he decides, with the aid of a dead shadow, which was one of the more interesting things they showed in this episode, he decides Oliver needs one last distraction, one final thing to push him over the edge. And it was Laurel finding out that he was the Arrow. And he doesn't go to hurt her. He doesn't do anything physical. Aside from pushing the door open when she tries to close it on him, he doesn't do anything. He just walks in calmly. "I'm here to tell you something. Oliver's the Arrow." She's about to tear up and stuff. And he just turns around and goes home. He's perfectly fine. Nothing about it. But there are so many other good points in this episode. Lance ends up getting arrested at the end of this episode for basically conspiring to commit crimes or whatever they actually got him with, because he was working with the Arrow, and of course he doesn't actually know it's Oliver. Roy, like I mentioned, he did quit the team, and I actually love the scene where he does argue with them, because he doesn't ever argue with anyone outside of Oliver and Thea, I feel, personally at least, unless he's actually in a fight or something. But in this episode, we had a nice little scene where it was everyone in the inside group, in a sense, outside of Oliver, because he was dealing with some things, and they're having their conversation where Roy feels like Oliver's the reason all of this crap happened. And I thought that was a really cool scene where he flat out calls Sarah when she says, "I think Oliver was right," or she said, "I think you're mad because you lost Slade," and he said, "Well, of course you agree with him, or of course you would side with him. You're laying the guy," or something like that. And it was just a good scene. He was just really pissed off, and his rage, I thought it was going to be used really well in this episode, and it was, but I was expecting it to be used in a good way. But after like the one punch he put in with Slade, it pretty much went against the whole team and just completely backfired in a way it never had before. And that was actually really good. I enjoyed that, and he quit the team. We're going to see some things work out with him, of course, but for now we're going to be working on Slade, and as they should, because he's far more important than getting Roy on the team. And he might not even come back to the team in this season. Who knows? I'm not sure how many episodes we have, but we have to be nearing the end of the season, and that's very unfortunate because the season's so good. But he might not come back to the team until the next season, which would kind of suck. But at the same time, they have Deathstroke to deal with, and in this episode, they deal with Brother Blood in a sense, just in a very small sense, in him actually being in the campaign. But we also get to see who Slade is working with, and we find out that the woman who has been helping Oliver by filling in for him at all these meetings and stuff, she's working with Slade, and that was an amazing scene. Like as soon as he went there and was like, what's happening, and she's like, can you guys give us the room? I was just pointing at the screen like, this woman, I don't remember her name, but just her, just it was a good scene, and I love Summer Glau as an actress too, and it was great. They had a little fight, and it actually didn't end the way I thought it would. I thought she would kind of play the role where she kind of got beat in the little tussle that they had, and she would call in security or something and act like Oliver just lost his mind for a second. But that wasn't a part of Slade's plan. It was tell him to come get his sister and come alone. And when Oliver went to do that, which was a pretty cool action scene where he, I think, tripped maybe a dozen people and flipped everybody over, as he went through that to get to his sister who wasn't actually there, Slade went to get these prisoners, and I was hoping that he was going to get the Suicide Squad, because I know in the comics, because I've been watching videos since that episode, where he's a part of the Suicide Squad, and I thought, is he getting the Suicide Squad? Are they being transferred right now? Or is it one specific character maybe? But he's just getting some random people who are criminals for his army. So that was a cool little trick, and it was this huge distraction just so he could get a couple more people for his army. But that's how high level this character is, where he'll pull off this giant distraction and even lets the girl go. He lets Thea go, and she sees his face completely. He's not Deathstroke, he's Slade Wilson, and he lets her go completely. So he's going to be arrested, possibly in the next episode or the one after that, because of some sort of weird legal stuff. And also, he's really rich, and even in real life, rich people do get out of going to prison. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But I'm excited to see if he does go to prison, what in that plan is, like, what is that in his plan to get arrested? How does that help him? And I'm just really excited to see whether or not he does. And I'd love to see him get arrested, because if that is a part of his plan, it would just be insane to see what the overarching plan actually is. But this episode was definitely amazing. We also got, of course, the flashbacks were really good, and that's where we got to see that Shadow was in Slade's mind. And when they first showed her, I thought, oh, the flashbacks are gonna get pretty crazy, where he's losing his mind because of the Mirakuru, and we'll kind of see his evolution as a character in the past, where he's able to get out of that, and then they go to the present where he's watching the information where pretty much everyone is giving their votes to Moira, and he has his argument with Sebastian, and just before he decides Oliver needs one final distraction, we see Shadow over his shoulder, and I thought, he's not past this, and she's in his head, and it kind of alludes to something he said in the beginning of the episode with Thea, where he mentions how he knows a lot about heartbreak, and sometimes it's really difficult to get through, and other times you never get over it. And I would assume this is one of those times, because you tend not to see the person you lost unless you're not over it. And I thought, it's just amazing that he's still mentally unstable. I thought he figured everything out. We had Roy for the early stages. We had the past scenes already with Slade when he was first figuring things out and he was really angry. And now we have present Slade, and I thought, he's past it. And now we have Roy, because of course in the past scenes he's also fairly over it, or at least it seemed that way. And we still just have Roy for those early stages, who's dealing with it in a completely different way, because obviously he's not on the island and he's dealing with a more day-to-day type of situation. But we see you never really get past certain things. It's just dependent on who you are as a person. And Slade still loves Shadow, and she's still on his mind, and he sees her. And I'm gonna love to see when Slade and Oliver come together, and Slade eventually slips up, or he flat out says, I still see her, like she's in the room right now or something. I would love to have that scene in this series. But it was an amazing episode, lots of great points in it. Roy quitting, he'll come back, of course. Laurel knows that's a series changer. She will know, and odds are she'll find out about Sarah right after that, because she's going to talk to Oliver. Who knows how close she's going to get, and she might just figure it out herself, like I was right next to Black Canary in the last episode, the Birds of Prey. Now I kind of see it, even though she has the mask and stuff, she might be able to figure it out, like that's why you two we're so close because you two are the vigilantes and stuff like that. Lance being arrested could be a series changer. We'll have to see how things change for his character. But I am curious because I like his character and I love when he gets a good focus because he was one of the most stable characters and now he's gotten to the point where he was sort of the Jim Gordon, and I think that's current. He's like the Jim Gordon to the Arrow compared to Jim Gordon to Batman, obviously. And he was demoted from detective, so he's just a beat cop, and now he's getting arrested, and we'll have to see if Laurel's able to get him out of this crazy situation because obviously she'll be his lawyer, but now she knows the truth. Who knows how that could play out and affect her case? She might not even take it because now she knows, but odds are she will because cares about her dad and she knows, or she might see that Oliver has been a good guy so far compared to when he was just the killer vigilante. He's actually saving people and not murdering them. So we'll have to wait and see, but this episode had so much good in it. Everything about this episode was just great, and I cannot wait to see how all these little plot points affect the rest of this series. But comment below, let me know what you guys thought of it, your favorite parts, your least favorite parts, and what plot line that has been introduced in this episode did you guys love the most? Because there were so many. Is it Laurel finding out? Is it Roy quitting? Is it Thea finding out that Merlin's her dad? Because that's definitely a series changer. But what did you guys find the most interesting plot point? Comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.